all set here. How's everybody doing this evening? So good to be here live with you guys. Another week is making its way through. We've made it to the hump, the Wednesday hump. So, welcome to the Wednesday hump live here at the Upstairs to the Right Music channel every Wednesday night, 11 p.m. Central European time. Um, we're here. And so good to be here with you guys. I always start out by saying that time is a precious thing. And for you to spend a little bit of your time with me is really greatly appreciated. So thank you guys so much for that. Scott, I was listening to that track you put up today on your YouTube channel. If you guys haven't done it, please go to Scott's YouTube channel, Scott Bogfus. Go to his YouTube channel. Take a listen to the tunes he puts up. I like your. I'm really impressed with your audio because it's really well balanced. Are you using a special microphone for that? I'm curious, Scott. It's really good stuff. Hey Ben, hey, how you doing? Mr. Watson in the house as well. Scott says, I just noticed Epiphone put out some new Les Paul and SG Tribute Plus guitars. That's correct. Phenomenal price. There seem to be two versions of each. In the 579 range Canadian. Yeah, those are going for 399 euros here. And those Tribute Plus guitars, those are okay. They're okay, but keep in mind those are bolt necks. There's going to be 4 bolts in the neck at the back of that. So those are bolt-on neck guitars. It's interesting that the early Japanese Les Paul copies were also bolt-on necks. It wasn't until 1976, 1970, early 1977, mid 1976, that they started coming out with just a whole line of nothing but set neck guitars. So the value on the bolt-on neck Les Pauls from that era are actually not very much more than the cost of one of these Tribute Pluses that Epiphone is putting out. So an interesting thing there. Bolt-on neck Les Pauls generally don't do well uh, outside of the collector's market. We'll talk about that a little bit tonight. I agree. Scott's mic sounds very well balanced. Yeah, it really does, Ben. It really, really does. Everyone says that mic, but no, I just have a GoPro. Well, I'll tell you what, then we're all looking at the microphone. I think it's the room, to be honest with you. You've got a really good sound there. I've got to tell you. So it makes everything sound good. So keep that up, man. It's a good room. This room sounds good. You sound good. The room sounds good. It's all good. you know, tonight's story. What did I write here? Great guitars nobody wants. Right. Well, I've been kind of thinking about this. I'm kind of alternating between homemade lemonade and sake. Not a combination that I recommend for everybody, but a good friend of mine brought back a bottle of good Japanese sake, gave it to me, and I felt bad about not at least tasting a little bit of it, so I thought this would be a good opportunity. I won't drink too much of it because sake does make you sloppy, but it's good. It is actually good stuff to have. The real stuff from Japan, it's night and day from the export stuff that they put out. Very small room. I can touch the 4 walls, the ceiling. Well, I say, yeah, that's the small room. Well, stone room, probably. Some wood probably in there as well. It's good sound. Good sound. You can record in there, no problem. You could cut a record in that room, no problem, no problem, without doing any kind of treatment. Tonight's story starts with perception. In the last decade, guitar culture really shifted from players to collectors. And we got into this weird thing where guitars became less about expression and more about, status, more about status. It's a weird kind of thing. And as a novice historian of guitar culture over the last, half century, I really think, again, that this consumerism that we were generally pushed into, especially after post the Second World War, going into the 1950s and 1960s, um, really is the driving force behind everything. And not just the guitar market is what I'm trying to say, a lot of things. But it certainly was a driving factor behind the guitar market. And then fast forward to the COVID boom that I was talking about in the last live stream. And, you know, we saw an uptick in the consumerism of guitars. But one other thing that I didn't mention, and it was something that I didn't mention in the last live stream that I should have, so much so that I've made a whole live stream tonight about that, is that everybody at that time, I don't know if you remember, but everybody at that time really wanted made in the USA. It either had to be made in the USA, um, a vintage guitar, or custom shop. It was during this period that we saw the rise, I mean, the real rise of the custom shop. Suddenly, everybody had a custom shop, and it was a 4 to 5 year waiting list. That's funny to me that if you put in an order with some of these guys back in 2020, 2021, you're just now getting your guitar. and and has it gone up in value? And if it was with G&L, yeah, that's a problem. And that demand inflated the high end of the market, and that left that vacuum underneath. And we've explored that vacuum 6 ways to Sunday. But all those great mid-tier guitars suddenly felt less desirable. Now, this is just going back to the COVID period. If we extend that back even to the 80s coming forward, there are a lot of guitars that were popular at one point, but they kind of fell out of favor. And in the live stream here, in the last live stream, there was some guitars that were Yamahas that were mentioned. And I think that that certainly is a guitar that falls in tonight's discussion. Well, one of the guitars. But the thing that's funny to me, and that also includes also the vintage 98 period Grecos made in Korea that I've been showing you guys here that I got one, or I got two in actually. The other one I'm still waiting for a part for, but a replacement part. But they fall in that category too. And the funny thing is that the build quality on these guitars, without any question, are better than the ones today. And quality doesn't always equal hype anymore, unfortunately. So that's what we're going to explore tonight, what I want to talk about tonight, if you guys don't mind. Michael Watson says, I never gave a damn where my guitars were made. All that mattered is if I liked them. Yeah, but that would put you in the minority, along with me as well. I didn't care. I really didn't. And you can see some of my, my live stage performances. I should put up more. I found some footage. I should put up some other shows, but I didn't care what it said on the guitar. I was playing everything, high end guitars, low end guitars, and everything in between. And I didn't care. That wasn't that wasn't a thought that hey, do I have a guitar? The right guitar. I didn't walk up there with a nylon acoustic, but I certainly didn't care about what it said on the headstock. But that puts me and you, Michael, in kind of the minority because most people did. Again, it went from being a player's, you know, kind of tool to being a collector's tool. And by the way, not all those collectors were players. So they really, were in it for, the name. In the late 90s to early 2000s, speaking of Epiphones, Scott, the Korean and early Chinese runs had superb woodwork. The neck on that, which I haven't gotten it back from Fern yet. My 2001 Squire Affinity is the wood on that neck is as good as that you're going to get on a high end guitar. Nice figuring on it, solid maple, nice, 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 nice. They had good electronics as well. The electronics in this 98 Les Paul that I have here in its case right here behind me is superb. Those pickups, everything sounds good. And what are we talking? You know, quite a number of years. 20 over 20 27 years. Is that what that works out to later? And there's no crackling in the pots. I didn't have to spray the pots. I didn't have to do anything. The switch works is still nice and tight, really well made. But because they either are not made in Japan, which is a funny thing because even that before people didn't give a crap about, or they don't say Gibson on the headstock, which again is is funny. Well, even that, if it doesn't say Epiphone on the headstock, let's say that, then somehow or another, there's something wrong there. Well, I did say these are the Epiphones from that period, but I was also really also talking about the Tokais from that period as well. And um, and also within the case of the Chinese, some of the squires, the early Chinese squires, especially in '97. If you get a '97 Chinese-made squire, if you can find one of those, that has all the same fit, all the dimensions, all the same build, all the same quality that you would get in a made in Japan from the late '70s. That's how good. And also they're not, the neck sizes are identical to those as well. And they say Squire up on the top. They don't say affinity. These are the affinities and the bullets. The early affinities and bullets were actually better fenders than some of the fenders that were coming out at that time in the States, to be frank. Yamaha Pacificas, I was just mentioning that as well. Fantastic necks. Great fretwork. Never came across a Pacifica that, I had fret issues with. 100% would pass the nylon test. And reliable hardware, super reliable. Guarantee you that if you get yourself a Japanese made Pacifica, a Yamaha, that that'll be a guitar that'll last you forever. You will have no issues, no problems, and somehow or another, these guitars are just not really ever discussed, ever talked about. I saw a YouTube video with Red Shaw where he had a Pacifica, and the question was, how come? I guess it was something, I'm paraphrasing. How Why is it that nobody's discussing this guitar, and or why nobody plays it? And that's an interesting question, and I think there is no logical, sane answer to that. Again, another guitar that is a fantastic guitar that I think for anybody would be a killer thing to own. I take every guitar on an individual basis. Even if I play a bad one, I don't necessarily think it's all the same type of guitars are going to be the same. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's where either in my mind I built up the hype of that last Telecaster that I was considering getting, the one that I had been waiting. I played years and years before another one of it. I just came to the conclusion after playing the one that I got in that either in my mind, or maybe it's a 50-50 of both, that I've romanticized that guitar. But no, I actually have footage of me playing that on stage, and it felt great and sounded great. So I just think that that guitar, the one I got in, even though it was from the same line, wasn't as good as the one that I had before, which is another reason why I was like, I played too many better ones for me to stick with to be happy with this. So I can dig that. Not everyone in the same line is going to be great. Just I thought, that was a good example to me for that. About to drive, but listening in. Thank you, Maddie. Drive safe. Good to see you, sir. When did the Pacifica first come out? I can recall them back from the mid 90s, mid to late 90s, in my mind. Um, you are fact checking me on that, guys. Um, Mid-level Tokai or Greco models that I've been dealing with, like the EG 500s or the SS 40s. Not quite the super real stuff, but however, those are phenomenal guitars. We've had one after another on this channel in person, and you can see it. And and I've held enough of them that again, if you find the one that clicks with you, you've got yourself a keeper lifer guitar. You don't, a desert island guitar, if you will. Another one that's really weird to me that if there was a market for it, I would try to get into it, but there's just not for here. There's not really enough of one. But are the Fender Highway One and the Classic Player Series? For some reason, the Highway One Fender, American made Fenders, but they never got the love that they should have gotten. The Classic Player Series, for example. And these are Fenders that I see consistently when I do see them at Vinendall and a few other shows that I follow. Uh, they're going for not a lot of money. You can get a Highway One secondhand for cheaper than a secondhand Mexican made. One of the well, let's not get into that because that's splitting hairs. But no, the early Mexican ones weren't that great. And you'd have a better guitar, you know. And the classic player series as well, same thing. Same thing. It doesn't get the love that they should. Again, real USA Fenders, but you know, there's that. Back to the chat here. Keep it going. Mr. Watson says, I had a Fender Player 3 that was a great guitar. I just found a video of an 89 Pacifica. Wow, way back in 89. Yeah. I guess the first, again, this is when I started encountering them. 97 was when I really started really getting guitars when I was living in Japan. So that's the earliest memory I have of seeing Yamaha Pacifica. However, 89, that wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, Player 3, that was a great guitar, Michael Watson says. Yeah, they're fantastic guitars that don't get the love that they should. Again, great guitars that nobody wants for some reason, because maybe somewhere, again, getting back to the internet forums, one guy gets one and says, "Oh, this is shit." And then if it's on rollout, and if that has enough of of a of a of a stick to it, then that'll stick. And those guitars, or if there's problems in some of the early run production, that'll stick too. So by the time you get to series 2 or 3, nobody's interested anymore, and that's a shame because they've knocked out all the monkeys. If that was the issue, I suspect it was probably a little bit of both. But those are fantastic guitars that you can get out there secondhand, and you'd be laughing. You you really be so happy with that. And they don't get a lot of talk either. Nobody talks about these on YouTube. What do the 012, 212, and the 612 Pacifica mean? That's always dealing with yen price. I don't understand the yen price on this and how that works out because different companies do it differently. But it's always connected to the price of the guitar. So a 012 would be less of a value than obviously a 212, and the 612 would be the upper value. I suppose maybe you're looking at Junimon, Niju Ichimon, and Sanju Ichimon. That would be a lot. That would have to be a pretty good Pacifica. So I don't know. That's a good question. I'll look into that. But I suspect that that is tied into that. And my personal favorite are the early Squire 2000 SE models. The one that my parts caster is the basis of. By the way, I had a friend of mine come over and looked at the headstock and how bare it was. He says, well, he was looking at the guitar. He says, well, this is a Squire. You know, the body's a Squire. You got the Squire all electronics inside have been changed up a little bit. Pickups changed, but basically all it's a Squire. Why don't you just put a Squire decal on it? It'll look better. And I said, well, I have this thing about putting decals on things that they are. He says this thing is 2/3 a Squire. The only thing you put a neck on and change the pickups. I said, okay, all right. So I did put I did have Squire decal from that era. That would be correct. It's a duplicate replica of the decal that would have been on that guitar that era, and I put it on. So I'm looking at it. I'm trying to. Oh, funny enough, it's right here next to me. That's right. I had it here in the room, so I put it on. You can. I can't hold it right. You guys can see the decal. It's a Squire. There's a Squire plate on it. It's a Squire guitar. The only thing I did was change the pickup configuration and had to put a new neck on it. But yeah, I decided to see if I after his thoughts on it, I was like, maybe I'm being a little bit too hardcore. But these early 2000 Squire SE models have great bones because outer body, put a maple neck on it, and hey, man, and, and the next, I found a neck that is exactly like the neck that this guitar came with. These were full size, nice, thick necks on these guitars, just like this one. Well, actually, this one's a little better than the stock one, actually. Um, but in any case, they're built in China, yeah. But I've played a lot of strats, and these hold their own even without changing the configuration. If you can find one original condition, which you should still be able to, you got yourself a great strat. It would really be all you would really need, you know and I like so much. Like I said, it's my main guitar. It's what I use to play everything recently on. It's a great guitar for recording and live, and it's very, clean and quiet because I have humbuckers in there now, so don't have to worry about the Strat hum. That's just a plus. The funny thing is that all these guitars have fallen into no man's land. They're too good to be cheap, which you know, but they're not hyped enough to be collectible, and that's a tough place for a guitar to be in. And yet the ones that I've gone through tonight absolutely fall in that category. I find it so stressful when I know I have an excellent guitar and I know what it's worth, what it's really worth, its real value. And the market, because they're indifferent to them for various reasons, don't really reflect the value that that guitar really represents. And as a seller, that sucks. But as a buyer for you, if you're out there buying, then that's a great thing. That's actually an advantage because there are the models that I've talked about here and quite a few others are fantastic guitars. You know, the sweetest spot is where the real value hides. You know, and that's the issue with those guitars. They're just too good to be cheap. You're not gonna get a late '70s or early '80s Tokai or Greco for cheap. Yet, if you have one and you put it out on the market for what its real value is, you're gonna have a hard time selling it. Is another way of saying that. I've owned a lot of guitars. They've come and gone. Uh, I've it's funny, the ones that I've restored and kept are Squires, my two Squires. But and I've restored mini guitars as well. As I stated, I'm in the middle of restoring this 98 Korean made SG. But there are some examples of guitars that I think also fall into this category that, from my own personal experience, I found were they're too good to be cheap, but they're not part of the hype machine out there, so they don't get their real value in terms of money. The Epiphone Korean Corina Flying V that I had in, I've had two in. The second one, uh, that one was covered in rust, um, and needed a lot of TLC, a lot of cleaning up. If you guys remember, I documented myself showing the different methods of getting rust off of old, guitars, hardware, and three methods. And it came back to life. And before, when I bought it in the condition, there's really nobody wanted it. And when I restored it and made it pretty again, I had a hard time selling it. I put all that man hours of work into that guitar, and it's a great guitar. It's a really good guitar, really great guitar, especially those early late '90s ones. But I broke even on that guitar. I broke even on that sale, and I kind of learned. Um, the spacey sounds I've had in quite a few of those. I'm still amazed on everyone that I've had in. Everyone I've had, even the few that I've had to restore, were excellent guitars. I haven't had a bad one yet. After, even the crappy ones, with a little bit of TLC, I got those things humming. I would bring in more of those, but my main client, isn't interested at this time because, again, it's not something that's out there on the hype machine. So therefore, it's not something that their clientele necessarily would be interested in. So they buy them once they're there in the shop, and the guys play them, and they're, oh, it's bad. This is pretty good, and they do go, but they go slow. So there's that. The feel, the tone, it's all there. It's all there. You know, and of course, again, my this one, the Affinity's 2001. This one is 2003. So my 2003 SE. Um, I put in my Dry Z humbuckers in there, and three position switch. Made it so that the tone control only controls the rear pickup and put in a treble bleed in this thing. And this I had you I evolved to this. This was an evolution that I realized that this was the type of guitar that I needed for recording that I wanted. Still working on these frets. That was the only thing, is that the fretwork on this raw neck. It was a raw neck that I got, but it was well made, but just raw. It needed work, which is probably why I got it so cheap. But I've been working on these frets, and I finally been getting it to where I like it. So this neck is probably going to be a keeper. What do you guys think? Should I keep the should I keep the logo on there, or is that kind of cheating? Uh, Let me hear your thoughts on it. My buddies seem to think that it was okay, but I'd love to hear what you guys thought. Your thoughts on that are. Ugh, sorry, seeds. Um, These are the kind of guitars I mean when I say there's a lot of greatness sitting in closets across this planet. It's a lot of great guitars that have great bones. Trust me when I say that. I think you guys do. Is that the bones of a guitar are the most important thing. It's just like, I guess it would be just like a sailing vessel. If the ship has good bones, then, you can change the sails on it. You can put a new anchor on, but the basic structure is there. So it's the same thing with guitars. Mike, did you try any of those 40th anniversary Squires from a few years back? Oh, not only try one, I owned one. I owned one of those, and for a short period of time, as usual. I have to go back and scroll back through my videos to find it. Had to be about, yeah, about when they came out. I got hold of one. Excellent guitars again. However, oddly enough, great guitars. But again, if you found a 97 Squire Affinity, you'd have the same guitar, and really nicely made. So, when you've been around enough of them, you can start saying, well, these are good. But if you go back, it's always going back, though. Isn't that funny? The older ones still had better wood. They had good wood. It always tickles me when I say that. My main problem with Strats is that I hit the volume knob and turning it down. Is there any way of making the knob harder? It doesn't turn. Maybe a felt pad underneath the knob. Yeah. Classic trick is to take some styrofoam, and cut it down and take out that volume knob, take it off, cut the styrofoam so that it fits the inside of the ridges of there, that outer ridge, stick it in there, stick it back on, and it'll turn. It'll turn, but it'll be a lot less loosey goosey. I've done that with a number of guitars in the past, especially when I'm playing. That is one modification that I usually do. Though back then, though, like I said, I would use tissue paper. Styrofoam is your best friend with that, but I would do those things, before I went on stage playing guitar, because the same. I did not want to hit that volume knob on Strats, but this one, as you can see, that was another design, is to move that volume knob away from this area. So I'm not even touching that. That's another reason for that two knob. And that's something that cats used to do. Not as neat as that, not as neatly done, but that's the reason for that modification as well. So this is, like I said, you get to that stage where you say, okay, I'm going to have to build the guitar. You know, I want a vintage guitar, sure, but this guitar is already going to, does it sound stratty? No. To be honest, this guitar sounds more like an SG, than it does a Strat. But I can get some stratty sounds out of it. But it covers a lot of territory. So there is that. Yeah, I meant you should be fine. It's not like it's a Chipson. Yeah, I agree, Maddie. It's not. It's a legitimate 2003 Squire SE. Everything's there basically. Just a few changes to the plate and to the pickups. So I'll keep it on. I like the way that it looks. It just blank. It seems so empty to me. I was gonna come up with my own logo at one point, but I was like, nah, I don't want to do that because it's a Squire. Either keep it blank or put a logo on it. And I went with this, and I'm kind of glad I did. It looks a lot better. Glad to have your input. Actually, that actually means a lot to me. So out there in the pawn shops, you know, there are a lot of great guitars. I say pawn shops, but used stores, pawn shops, secondhand shops, you know. But all these faced an uphill battle with their reputation. See, reputation is really one of the strongest forces in the world. Although people try to, all them chicks on OnlyFans think that, somehow they're going to survive that down the road with their reputations. Buddy, nah, nah. And it's kind of the same thing with a guitar. Once it gets labeled cheap, sorry for the correlation there with OnlyFans girls, but hey, you know, it's almost impossible to shake that image. Again, my point with the OnlyFans girls. Even if the instrument is, demonstratively or objectively good. Again, you tie that into an OnlyFans girls. Well, hey, that metaphor just works all the way around. And collectors, in a sense, kind of reinforce that. They want the safe bets. They want the headstock that looks right when they take a photo of it and share it with their friends. And that's why it went from less of a focus of the quality and value of the guitar to the collectability of it, and why we went from being a table full of players to a table, salt and pepper sprinkled with collectors. Again, some collectors are players, some are not. And collectors, in a sense, they reinforce that. But reputation doesn't necessarily reflect the true nature of an instrument. Um, in blind test, I've seen people pick mid-tier Japanese or Korean guitars over custom shops simply because the tone and the feel were better. So why don't these guitars rise in demand and value? It has nothing to do with tone. It has everything to do with the catch-all of catch. If you don't know what catch means, look it up. Nostalgia and narrative. Nostalgia and narrative. It's hard to be nostalgic about a Japanese made guitar, regardless of whether it's a Strat, a Les Paul, SG, or whatever, if you're from, from, the Midwest. Because, you know, unless one somehow or another magically showed up in town back when you were younger, and there's a whole story behind that, but not likely. Not likely. And it's again good news for players, in my opinion, because you can buy against the trend and still win. You can take a bet against the marketplace and what my Les Paul forum says, or Reddit, and take a bet against it, and probably you'll find out that you're in a good place. You made a good decision. Um, did Fender ever do a perloid or abalone Fender logo on the headstock? No. The difference in the headstock logos were the coloration, the silver. Some had a silver outline to them, some had a gold outline to them, and some of them, like this one, like an SE model, would just have no outline, script like that, block script almost on the Stratocaster, or in the later ones, it just said Strat. It didn't even say Stratocaster. But no, they never did anything like that I know of. It was just the font and the quality. If it was a gold outline font, then that was the top of the line Squire. But always a decal instead of an inlay. That is correct. Always a decal. Always. You know, the whole idea behind them is a budget brand, and so that would be certainly somewhere where they could save money by just sticking on decals instead of doing any kind of work like that. So yeah, it's really good news for players. But again, like I said, it's unfair to the manufacturers and the owners of those instruments in some regards when they want to move them into the market and say, "Hey, look what I've got. This is fantastic. Why don't you check this out?" Nah, I read about those. I read about those. Those are no good. Never touched one. Never saw one. Never played one. But I read about it, so that's good enough for me. Which is interesting that the things that people believe. Um, Now I wish I had it, but it's down at Fern Shop is the SG that I'm working on because it had a nasty ding at the top of the headstock. A bit of the headstock was taken off, and I was able to rebuild that and restore it. And then because it never will come out perfect, make it look like instead of it fell over and took off a chunk of the headstock at the top, like the mustache. It took off this corner of the mustache. It looks like it fell over and it just got a little ding there, and that's what I call you know uh, tasteful restoration, because if you make it too new, it'll stand out like a sore thumb if the rest of the guitar has certainly some blemishes or things like that. You want to try to match the restoration to the guitar. And I've really gotten good at that. I can't wait to show you guys that. Take pictures and you can see the before and after what I did. I am impressed, you know, because I had to color match the headstock paint, and then I had to use painter's tape in order to form a mold so that I could fill that in with acrylic, so that I could, and then sand that down, polish that so that it looked that way. So it was actually, um, I saw potential there. And now that that's done, the value of that guitar, of course, has gone up. You know, that's how a 250-year-old guitar can turn into that you can get used. Even though it's a 98, it's a Korean made, but it had some damage to it. But I can take that for 300 euros and I can turn it into a 500 or 600-year-old guitar. And restoration isn't just about repair, it's about reclamation. It's about reclaiming that instrument so that you can fix it up so that somebody can enjoy it and it can have a life that'll go on and on and on, you know. And this is again, um, this is bringing back something and giving back something, um, in my karma, I guess you will, is the way that I look at it. And I really want to take these great instruments that don't have a lot of hype to them, give them back to their original, looks as close as I can get, make it look nice, and get it out there to a new generation at a good value. That's the other. There's a third leg to that stool, is that I'm also be, being able to do that work, and therefore I can sell it on at a lower price as well. And honestly, in a time when new gear keeps getting more expensive, let me keep my eye on the chat here. Restoring old guitars is one of the few areas where you can really still come out ahead. And that's why I always tell people, if you got the time, the tools, and a bit of curiosity, save a guitar instead of buying a new one. Said hi. Well, hello to you, 420. Um, do you remember a guitar called an Aria Pro Strat? Yep, yeah, yeah. I've had quite a few Aria Pro Strats here. Welcome to the chat, by the way. I got one in the late '90s. It came with a small amplifier for about 120. It was pretty good. Yeah, the Aria Pro Strats are great. My friend John McKnight, who I learned all in my early ages, stages of learning guitar, had an Aria Pro 2. He had court bass and an Aria Pro 2 Strat. Those were super popular back in the early '80s. And it's the guitar that I learned, one of the guitars I learned on. Thor, the crazy dude. Yes, indeed. Welcome to the chat. If you buy a Gibson, you better know a good luthier. Yeah, I can understand what you mean. Those guitars, when set up properly, they sing, and that's not just the strings. It's also the pickup heights and things like that. And by the way, that's something that you have to do. The pickup height is something that you have to adjust according to your amplification system. So that's not really something your luthier can do unless they have the same amp. Uh, but yeah, I agree with that. That's a guitar that you can do a basic setup yourself, but taking it to a luthier every year for maintenance is always advisable. Good evening from Denmark. Good evening to you, Mr. Benny. How you doing? Welcome, welcome. I have a good friend of mine who just came to visit me that I got sake from. Um, she is with her mother now, moved on to Denmark, and sent me pictures. I'm jealous because she was eating one of those hot dogs, and boy, those hot dogs are good. So good evening to you too, Mr. Larson. Yeah. Speaking of the sake, I should sip a little bit more of this. Really good, high quality sake that's not for export is very dangerous because it's very light. They all have different notes to them. Like this one has a very fruity. Yeah, see, look, it's like I'm doing a wine tasting TV live stream. There's a lot of fruit to it, very light. At 7% alcohol per volume, you think that that's not a lot, but this stuff, man, whoo, I I had made the mistake of doing 6 cups of this size cup, one evening, 6 of them, and I learned my lesson. These little cups, they don't look like much, but it's dangerous stuff. But I do love it. It's one of the few alcohols that I can actually drink. My body can't metabolize alcohol too well. And sake, for some reason, is one that I can enjoy. But I sip it. I sip it like scotch or whiskey. Yeah, a proper hot dog in Denmark has six. Yeah, man, dig it, man. The onion, cheese, tomato, um, sauerkraut, because I love sauerkraut from growing up. I'm showing my roots growing up. What else did I have on? Mustard and did I say pickle? Anyway, I got 4 or 5 on mine when I tried it out. Man, seriously, the banh mi in Vietnam is excellent. The hot dogs in Denmark are excellent. And in other words, you have to go to where things are from in order to really get good examples of it. But I've had good examples of some things in my life, fortunately, and the hot dogs in Denmark are are to die for. I bought a Firefly Telecaster and put Jerry Donahue pickups in it, along with CTS pots and caps. And Fireflies are great guitars. It plays and sounds better than the Made in Mexico Fender. I agree, Thor. Fireflies are fantastic guitars. I would love to get my hands on a Firefly semi-acoustic, semi-hollow. Some of their semi-hollows are really nice. Some of their designs overall are nice. Again, and the fretwork on those are nice. Again, you know, those have a little bit of hype to them. There's more. It's odd. There's more hype and more desirability on a Firefly guitar than there is for a Yamaha Pacifica out in the market right now. I can say that with a certain degree of certainty. There's more hype on a Firefly guitar than there is on a Yamaha Pacifica. Thus, again, why when that batch of Fireflies comes out, they get snapped up like this. A batch of Pacificas comes out, they sit there for a while. So, again, the value, good value with Fireflies, especially you can find some of the early ones. Oh yeah, I love banh mi. Yeah, I had banh mi in several countries. And then when I finally made it to Vietnam and I went to you have to go to oh, what's that resort area up there? I forget. Anyway, you have to go not Ho Chi Minh, that's Vietnam, but you've got to go up to oh, I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, to this one woman's shop. It said this is where banh mi first came from, and have one of those sandwiches. And I kid you not, that is the best sandwich I ever had. And the other reaction, and I've had that reaction with the hot dog I had um, in Copenhagen. Boy, man, Thor, the crazy dude. The quality control of Firefly is really good. Yeah, I'm sad to say I can't get a decent hot dog here in Amsterdam. if anybody out there who lives here in Amsterdam knows a good hot dog place, drop a line in. I'd love to hear it because I haven't found it yet, and I've been dying for a good hot dog. Please, guys, go to Scott's channel, hit that link. I'm going to hit it right now. Is this the one I saw earlier? Yeah, and this is another one I saw earlier, but check it out. Really hit that link up, guys. Hit that link for Scott. Yeah, it's funny. So I guess in summation, if you're looking for value, the late 90s, early 2000 Korean builds from Samick, from Peerless, and the early Court Factory stuff is worth having. This guitar here behind me is a Samick build. The The SG that I have that I'm working on is a Peerless build is a Simic build. I'm sorry, from '89. But a Peerless build or early Court build would be just as good. Japanese guitars from 1978 to 1985 that aren't the high end models. As long as they're not the bolt-on neck models from the early '70s, but all of them are winners. Really, seriously. I haven't found a bad one yet. Early Chinese Squires and Tokais. Got both of them here sitting. I've got a early Tokai from Korea and an early Chinese squire here before they standardized production. The reason I keep focusing on 98 Korean made Tokais is because they haven't, as of yet, as of that first year, they hadn't standardized production yet. So a lot of the build traits that they were doing with the Japanese models, you'll find with these. Again, not a double two rod truss rod, but a single rod truss like you would find on any other Gibson, and on this Les Paul here behind me. And not heavy. They're not boats. The early Korean guitars, unlike the early Japanese guitars, are not boats too. They got the weight just right, and they're as good as the Squire Elites from that period. I'm sorry, the Epiphone Elites from that period. The prices on these still remain reasonable because they lack hype, not quality. Nothing wrong with the quality. The irony of this crazy, crazy, crazy guitar market, where I started out this conversation tonight saying it's crazy, is that people chase rarity. Um, and the more people chase rarity, the cheaper real quality becomes. Just an odd thing. And there's nothing that perception. Of course, things change, markets change. I'll be frank with you. I really am of the opinion that all those boomer guitars, the 59 Les Pauls, those will remain of all of those are the 59, the 58, 59, 60, particularly the 59 Les Pauls. Those will always be on auction at Christie's. Your standard run 57 through 65s, hell, up through past post CBS guitars, nobody's going to really want those. They're not going to pay, the next generation of guitar players, they're not going to pay crazy money for those guitars. It's not going to happen. The bottom is going to fall out of the vintage market. Trust me. The bottom is going to fall out. It already is. It already is. And yet now, even now, you can find vintage guitars, Japanese made ones, Korean made ones, and the early Chinese ones, as I've stated, they're just as good as quality as those. As a matter of fact, they were copying those 50s models with these guitars. And again, you can get them for, pennies on the dollar. It's just strange, you know. It's just odd to me. But collectors are predictable. Like I said, that's why I can tell you that Christie's will always be auctioning off a Les Paul from the late 50s. They chase prestige, limited editions, and they believe the hype. They didn't listen. They didn't listen to the don't believe the hype. They believe the hype. They never heard that track. But players, real players, will always find joy in misfits. We just love misfits. And the guitars that cost less but inspire someone more are the misfit guitars. That's where I'm gonna label them from now on. The guitars that I've mentioned, I'm gonna refer to them as the misfits, so that you guys know what I'm talking about. Too good to be cheap, but not hyped enough to be collectible. So trust your ears and your hands over the internet boards, as always, as usual. Please do. Please do. That'll keep you from buying the wrong guitar as well. Because you'll read something. Again, I read about it, never touched it in my life, but it sure did read pretty. No, don't do that. You know, I just think that your best bet is to know that great guitars don't always come with reputations or with great reputation. The middle of the market, the forgotten models, and often these you can find for a song are the smartest buys right now. I'm telling you. Restoration, if you find one that needs restoration, restoration can turn an unwanted guitar into a lifetime player for you or someone else. And discounting, believe it or not, shows that a correction has occurred. So don't chase hype, guys. Chase tone. Always chase tone. Always. The boomer market will crumble. Agreed 100%, Maddie says. Yeah. Speaking of things that might be eaten on home turf, I had a cheesesteak in Philly last week and I didn't want to leave. Yeah. You have to go, when in Rome, order pizza. And if you're in Philly, you got to have a Philly. I agree. I haven't had a good Philly cheesesteak, honestly, outside of the United States. And I've had them in Asia, Europe, um, yeah, Asia and Europe. I had them all over, and I've never had one better than outside. So you gotta, but the real messed up thing, guys, about being a passport bro, is if you travel around enough and you get a taste of the good stuff, you develop what I call an educated palate. And when you have an educated palate, McDonald's just ain't gonna do anymore. or or anything that is said, just because Jamie Oliver says it's pad thai, it ain't pad thai. Trust me, you know. Um, I think the guitarist for Twisted Sister was horrible, although I did like some of their music. Yeah, I can dig that. The boomer market will crumble. Agreed. Like a Bones Vox High Flyer. Yeah. The Univox is a high flyer. Yeah. Again, a misfit guitar. But guess what? This is the truth, Mike. I've sold every Fender and Gibson in the shops I've worked at. I've currently had two Aria Pro cheapies and two Tuck Eyes made. And see, guys like us, Fern said it, man, Manning. He said that he said he's never known guys who deal in guitars that own one of those, you know. And it made me feel a little bit better about, I just, you know, since moving here, starting a business, everything goes into all my money goes into the business, and trying to improve the business or other things, and um, the owning of a vintage Japanese guitar has continued to elude me. But I feel better about it because Fern says you probably never have one. Because guys like you don't have those kind of instruments. I have two Squires now, an Affinity from 2001, and again this 2003 Partscaster. But that's it. It's a funny thing. It's a funny thing. I've sold every Fender and Gibson I've ever owned. Yeah, me too. You guys have witnessed some of that. World music is Korean, in my opinion. The closest you can get to made in Japan quality without buying Japanese. Honestly, my Korean BC Rich is better than my old made in Japan Jackson, even though that's still a good guitar. Yeah, I agree with that. The Korean guitars, I don't know, just they don't get a lot of love. I got two of them in right now, and I will make the lowest margin. I've got made in Japan Fender. That one is going to give me my highest margin. I've got a nice Silver Star Tokai. That's going to give me my second best margin. My third best margin is going to be on the SG because I got it cheap and I'm doing the restoration work on it. The worst margin there's going to be where it may be maybe $50 off from break even is actually this blue Greco here behind, Tokai behind me. That's Paul. Not anything to do with the quality of it or anything like that. It's just, again, there's no hype behind these guitars. So if you have to, explain it to somebody, you've already lost the battle. So that's just the truth of it. Um, Not sorry that I got it, because again, I may be wrong. I'm always conservative with my estimates, so I may be wrong on that. But I just had to have it to get it in. It's one of those ones I knew, because again, Korean guitars just, you know, especially here in Europe, these guys are not as sophisticated, frankly, as the North Americans and the Canadians are when it comes to these kind of things. And that's not a slight, that's just a reality, because of experience, which you've had come through. Amp 80%, guitar 20%. Yep, can't argue with that. Can't argue with that. I spent more time thinking about my pedal board than I think about the guitar, to be frank with you, because the sound of the output is really the biggest part of it. And the second part of that are the pickups, that I'm using. And then everything else falls from there. Run Riot. Yeah, kind of weird how Made in Korea was huge for new guitars over a decade ago, and now they're completely gone from public consciousness online. Yes, completely gone. And if you mention them, if you bring it up again, like I said, they have a very, very, very bad reputation. They're not viewed, and once you hold in your hand, you look at it, you're like, wait a minute, holy crap, this thing is pretty super sweet. And when you play it in, plug it in, play it, strum a few chords, run the neck a little bit, you're like, this thing is killer. You know, guess they were still on the used market though. Yeah, they're out there. They're out. There's plenty of them out there. Uh, the condition is, again, the issue. You're not gonna this one again. I really, really search to find the best, cleanest examples, all original parts that I can, unless it's something that, hey, I can restore that, and I can get this, and it makes sense. Generally, I try, as you guys know, I try to get them in, near mint condition, and yet still. And the translucent red model from this year is more popular than this translucent blue for some reason. I don't know why. I think the blue is killer. But again, it's a crazy market. It has nothing to do with value. It's all based upon hype and myth and nostalgia, which is the same side of the same coin as myth, in my opinion. Because we've proven that the things that we were nostalgic for were all a psyop. So we're selling guitars based on, psyop, operations from the 60s and 70s. Great. I'm sorry, but that's really how you should, if you have any sensibility, that's the only way that you could look at it, honest, or one of the ways you could look at it and not be far from the truth. So, great guitars, but nobody wants them, or almost nobody wants them. And, if you chase tone, however, you end up a happy person. If you do this, use these, instead of looking at the headstock, then you're all right. Then you're all right. You'll probably be all right. Do good photography, sell guitars quicker. It helps, especially if they document every aspect. I want a picture of the headstock. I want a picture of the front and back of that headstock. I'd like to have a picture of at least one section of the guitar so I can see the close up on the frets. I want to see a wide shot of the whole body back and front. Then I want to see close ups of the sides, if they're, laying on the side, and then close up of the back and front. That's about 11 pictures in total, I found. And on my website, I am going to be doing updating as soon as that. I've been holding off. As soon as that SG comes in, I'm going to start putting up more pictures. Right now, I usually do one or two back and front, and if somebody's interested, then I'll send them more pictures according to what they want to see. But yeah, it does help. Absolutely. I see in the shop now two people try Squires and tell me they are better than their Fenders. Yeah, they've got to that point, which is not great for Fender because in this kind of economic climate, if you're faced with a two or three hundred dollar difference between a Squire and a Fender, guess which one you're going to go for? I remember one time one of my local music stores was trying to sell me a totally effed up Korean Strat in the 90s as a project. My Luther skills didn't quite match, nor did the quality control. Yeah, you know, you know, that's a project that you've got to want to tackle. And I won't tackle all of them. I've looked at some where I said, you know what, you know, short of, strapping it to a table and lifting it up and it having lightning strike it, I don't know if I can work on this. But, I can certainly understand. I'm still waiting to see some made in Korea guitars that I missed back then to hit a new low enough price and good condition to pick up. That's coming. It's coming. The great correction, guys, I pointed this out in my last live stream, but the great correction has not yet occurred. I know that sounds amazing, considering it, what we're seeing out there, but we're starting to see the cracks in the armor. When a local shop is doing a 25% off sale of everything, you know, I don't need more guitars, but I still want those things I missed. Yeah, that's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. I would prefer, again, like I said, somebody out there buying secondhand guitars than a new guitar. Your first guitar should be a secondhand guitar. Shouldn't be a new one. I've always believed that. A good one, so you don't have too many problems, so it doesn't discourage you. But enough of a guitar where you will, as you progress, begin to learn its limitations, if that makes sense. That Strat literally had its neck on several millimeters to the bass side. Yeah, yeah, you can't fix a twisted neck or banana neck. Man, the correction definitely needs to happen. The manufacturer suggested retail price on that Eastman I bought a few months back went from 14 to 17. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying on the higher end guitars, you're starting to see that climb upward. But my goodness gracious, when it does crash, it'll be cheaper than 14. But again, it's the mid tier guitars that are really going to suffer most. You start getting the Eastmans and mid tier Gibsons, then not some. It'll be affected, uh, but the I guess because of the scale of it, the mid tier price, it'll seem like it's a more drastic of a reduction, but they're all going to get a haircut. Coffees are $7 in Australia. I play cheaper guitars now and enjoy life. Yeah, the prices of everything. The price of a business, no, not business class ticket. The price of a premium economy ticket from here to the States right now, I looked it up today because of something that came up, is $7,767. They want 7 grand fly from here to Las Vegas. And when you get to Las Vegas, I saw a news report the other day, uh, local Las Vegas. I watch American news and Dutch news and Singaporean news and British news, a lot of news. But they were saying the average price of a hamburger, in the average price of a hamburger, just a hamburger, no fries, no drink, just a hamburger, is $23. 23 bucks for a burger. That's insane. Rents are 40% of wage. Yep. Higher quality Korean guitars with proper quality control tend to be really good for the price, though. Yeah, like I said, this Tokai, this you know early production, first run production Tokai is an excellent guitar. It's a killer guitar, and it's all tight now. It's all because I took it down to the shop to have a guy take a look at, see if he was interested, and he set it up. You know, I didn't have to do the work. He set it up, made it really nice, and he jammed on it and he loved it. But right now, it's just not for him, unfortunately, because there's just not enough demand for something like that. That would have to be something where somebody came into the shop and saw it, and right now they're having problem with their foot traffic for the stuff that they already have. So yeah, it's um, it's insane. It's insane. Yeah, the prices are insane. Yikes, correct. Yeah, $23 is the average price of a hamburger in Las Vegas right now. You can this mom and daughter in the newscast that I saw, they went to oh, what's the name of that hamburger chain? Not In and Out. Was it In and Out? Something like In and Out. And between the two of them, they spent $60 for two hamburgers, fries, and a drink each. 60 US dollars for two burgers, two fries, and two cokes in Las Vegas. $7,000, over almost $8,000 for me to fly to the States. It's getting crazy. I love burger, but that's too damn high for a burger. Look, man, for that kind of money, they'd have to have, a Playmate of the Year bring it out in a bikini and high heels on a silver platter with a whole like dance troupe behind her doing the merengue in order for me to feel as though I got my value out of that burger. And even then, I'd feel gypped. Who would have thought burgers are for the rich? Well, again, just like everything else, this is the plan, isn't it? You know, cut out the middle class, and move us into a situation where, frankly, we're considering an order of fries to be a luxury. As insane as that sounds, that's exactly what's happening. If you had said any of this stuff, well, most of this stuff, if this is this bad 20 years ago, I'd have thought you were insane. I can't even imagine where we're going to be 20 years from this moment. Because you tell me something from 20 years from now, I would sit here and probably say, that sounds insane. Yet it'll be the sad truth. This is the way it is. $23. Yeah. Well, I think the idea in Vegas is that, you know, somebody somewhere had the great idea, hey, boys, let's stop, catering to, the high roller who wants to eat cheap and, the family who wants to come here on, their summer holiday vacation, spend a few days, eat a little cheap, maybe mom and dad play craps a little bit, lose a little bit of money, no big deal. Let's get rid of all those people and price this place out for an imaginary group of billionaires that are going to be coming here every week. You know, just not, you know, not a great thought. I'm just waiting from the future from Demolition Man where you got to go into a sewer and eat a rat burger if you want a burger. we you go to some of these McDonald's, you may have been eating that all along, or at the very least, Soylent Green. Natty Two Hats. Everything working class is now ridiculous. Travel, housing, healthcare, education. Yeah, like I said, man, this is a plan deal. Again, oh man, it's raining outside a whole lot and the water's starting to rise up. You think maybe we should do something about this? That's what they were all saying around Noah's Ark time. It was a little too late then. It's like I was pointing out with virus in a jar. If it's doubling every minute, When it gets to the 50% point, even though you still got 50% of the room to go, you're too late because that next doubling is going to be the whole enchilada. And I do believe that's part of it. Let's be playing guitar under our own bunkers. Yeah, and the rich, hid in their caves, but there was no hiding place from the Father of creation. Believe me, isn't that what Bob Marley said? And there's no hiding place from this economic woes. But there is smart buying out there. There's recognizing that there are guitar models out there that are great guitars that nobody wants, and those are the ones that you should be going for. From a business standpoint, I would love to bring in more of them, but this is only something that I can do every now and then. I have to go for the sure things, you know, and that's just the truth of it. But I had to I wanted to bring these two in as examples. Crab burger and soylent green is beginning to sound better and better. Who would have thought that? Who would have thunk it? you know? And by the way, I saw Soylent Green when it came out in a drive-in theater. What was that? 1972, 73? I kid you not. I saw that because my mother loved science fiction movies. THX 1138, Soylent Green, all those movies I saw in real time. And boy, I'm dating myself. Anybody guys remember that? Did you guys, any of you guys ever have that drive-in theater? You know, that was at its peak when I was a kid. I wish that had still been around while I was a teenager because that'd have been a whole lot of fun. But in any case, I did experience the drive-in theater quite a we would put on our pajamas, get in the car, go to the drive-in. My dad would get a big bucket of popcorn from the stand and hook up the speaker on your car window. That's how you heard the movie. And we all just sit there and watch Soylent Green. Had no idea what the hell I was looking at, but I knew it wasn't good. Anyway, guys, I think that's enough for tonight. We've discussed this subject quite a bit. Wow, we went late tonight. Hour and 22 minutes. Fantastic, guys. I guess the sake was rocket fuel for me today. I was able to talk quite a bit. I'll finish this up now. Now that I'm finishing up, I can finish this up. Food for thought, guys. Food for thought. Hopefully, I'll get that part. It was supposed to be in last week. It's not in yet. Mail is slow too. Another issue going on here. I'm looking to get that part so I can show you that SG so you can check that out. I certainly filmed that to show you the restoration work I did. I want to do that. Should have did that before I took it down the ferns. But in any case, I want to put that one together and maybe we'll do something with that this week. You'll see that on my regular content. Thank you guys. Take care. God bless each and every one of you. And to you guys, cheers. And I will see you again soon. Bye bye.